Start with mine.
Yep, and we're live. So whenever you are ready.
Okay, so for MVC, don't have a lot of actual code playing with, but I've got some information because this is mainly kind of a theory or a process. So there we go. The history of MVC is that before people were using MVC for coding, they were mostly doing them in single files that would link to content like images, or they might possibly have a CSS file, but everything was pretty consolidated, not very split out. For example, a website might consist of multiple HTML files, and each web page would consist of a single HTML file. It might link to the content like images, and with the advent of CSS, the design of the website started to get split out a little to a separate file that to be shared with multiple HTML pages. Any changes to the CSS file would automatically impact all linked HTML pages. MVC was actually first used at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, or PARC, in the 70s in an application called Smalltalk 76. It was first expressed as a general concept in '88 in an article found in the Journal of Object Technology, and it became popular for use with web applications after the introduction of Next Web Objects back in 1996. It became popular with Java developers when Web Objects was ported to Java, especially after frameworks like Spring came out in 2002, Django in 2005, and Rails also in 2005 were released. So as far as technologies go, it has been around for a while, but for Java, it's still fairly recent, 10 years or so. Even though it was developed for desktop computing, it's now widely adopted for web apps and is available in most programming languages. Several web frameworks have been created that enforce the pattern, and software frameworks do vary in their interpretations, mainly in the way that MVC responsibilities are divided between the client and the server. For example, in Django, Rails, and ASP.NET, clients send hyperlinks or form submissions to the server, which processes nearly the entire model and returns an updated web page or other document to the client. In Angular, JS, Ember.js, or JavaScript, MVC, and Backbone, they allow some partial execution on the client. So there's some slightly different deployments of it, but basically it is splitting it out because it stands for Model View Controller. Its goal is to separate the various parts of an application, the data, the display, and the code that accepts input and converts it to commands for the data or display. And the separation allows teams to collaborate on a project and work concurrently on different pieces of the application. The front end and back end can be assigned to different groups and can be developed and tested without impacting the other team. The model, this is the application's data and logical structure, and it is independent of the user interface. The view, this is any form of output to the end user. It could be the result of a calculation, the presentation of a chart or diagram, or the graphical display of a site or game. And the controller, this is what accepts input from the client and converts it to instructions for the model or view. Pros of the MVC process. Concurrent development by multiple developers working separately on the model, controller, and views. Logical grouping of related actions on a controller and views for a specific model or group together. It's a loosely coupled system where it's easy to separate the models, views, and controllers. It has ease of modification, as updating one component typically does not require updating either of the other two, and models can have multiple views. Cons of the MVC is that it can be very difficult to navigate if you're not familiar with it. It's complex, has multiple layers of abstraction, and it requires users to be familiar with the MVC process or they will have no clue where to go. It has multi-artifact consistency due to the splitting of a feature into 3 components and the need for developers to keep multiple representations consistent. It also has a high learning curve due to developers needing to be skilled in multiple technologies. So how it works, you have a user, they use the controller or they see a view. The controller is used by the user, manipulates the model. The model is manipulated by the controller and updates the view. And the view is updated by the model and displays to the user. The view and the controller do not talk. MVC rules. User interacts with view objects. View objects and controller objects talk to each other. Different controller objects talk to each other. Control objects talk to model objects, and no other forms of communication between objects are allowed. This is a diagram that many find useful for explaining how communication is or is not allowed with the picture of the little user or the object, or sorry, the view, model, and controller. Here you can see what is allowed, where the views can talk to the controllers, and the controllers to controllers, and controllers to views. But the people cannot talk to the controllers or to the views. They just get display, or sorry, the models. They just get to see the views. And sorry. Sample MVC structure. Some of you may be familiar with this from previous class in the city of Erin. We had our controller, model, and view folders. Inside each of those will be the various either controls, models, or views, which seems kind of obvious based on the name. A sample control file would look something like this. A sample model file is going to look partially like this. And a sample view file would look like that. And if you wanted a little easier view of them, here is your control, or sorry, your model, your control, and your view. You'll notice in the view, this is what is presented to the user. The control, this is the actions that the program is taking. And the model is basically the structure, what it can do. Any questions?
None that come to mind. I do remember City of Erin.
I do remember it too.
I very much do. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, naturally, as we go through this semester, there'll be pretty much everything we do will be in Model View Controller, so there'll be new examples and actual code to display. But for purposes of demonstration, I thought that would work.
Yeah. Reference something that most of us are familiar with. So.
Yeah. So how do I get back? Thank you. So how do I let go of screen share? I don't see.
I control it.
Okay.
Yeah. Or yeah, you can just turn off your screen share.
I was looking for it. Where'd it go?
It's in the upper right. The green monitor with an arrow on it.
I don't have that. It disappeared on me.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure.
Okay. And then now we're back to whoever's talking has focus instead of just you. So.
Yep.
And who else was supposed to present today? Assuming that we're done.
Gary was supposed to do application controller pattern.
Okay.
But he's not here.
Does anybody know what that is?
It's kind of, I'm running through it this week, and it's kind of takes place of a whole bunch of if statements or switch statements. You can use it to you create an interface class and use the you create an interface class, you create your other classes based on, you implement that, and then you create your controller class, which uses a hash map, and you can assign keys to the values that, if you remember the collection for map, which is the hash map, but you had it was a key value pair. So in basically the key value pairs take place of if statements. So one example is that I've been looking at and kind of just playing around with code is a calculator. So there's two inputs, input one, input two, and then you pick a symbol. Do you want to plus, minus, divide, or multiply? And that kind of goes back, if you think way back to 160 when we had to build that calculator, with something similar to that. If you think, if the symbol is plus, then you do this. If the symbol is minus, you do this. Well, when you do the application controller, it basically takes that if, all those if statements out, and you just assign, if the input is a plus, it picks that up from the key value pair, is what I've got so far. I'm not very far, but that's what I got so far. Eric might be able to tell you more. So, but it's a powerful little thing because it's going to save you a whole lot of coding. You know, think about all the switch statements you did to make that concept exercise format that you made for your main program.
Yeah, it's quite helpful because with the map, you know, you choose what type of object the value is, and if you make the object the interface, then all the classes that use that interface will be able to use that. So you basically load in all of those classes as the values and then define what the keys are, and that way when it's called, all you have to do is say, okay, get this key and execute. And you just call the method that is universal amongst all the classes, because it's all the same object per se, because they're all implementing the same interface. You don't have all those if statements, and it just executes the way you need to every time. So it's just how he was explaining it.
Yep, it looks real smooth.
Sounds cool. I'm always a big fan of making things more efficient.
Yep. And just Google it. There's a couple of, well, you can run across a couple of prior CIT 60 classes that did it, and they both use this calculator example a little differently, but kind of the same. But they do a good job of presenting it. I was kind of in the middle of building one myself, but I didn't quite get it done, or I would have actually, if I was done, I'd throw it up there for you to see, but I'm not quite done with it, so.
Very cool. Is there anything that we need to go over in terms of upcoming stuff? Is there
Well,
or is it just more of a keep on trucking kind of deal?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think is it you and I again next week, James?
I know I'm doing Android HTTP URL connection. I don't know when I'm doing it offhand though.
Yeah, I got that down here somewhere. I'm doing Hibernate. I don't know if it's next week or not. I worked on it like the first week so I could know what I was doing, and now I've got to go back and relearn it because I forgot it already.
Let's see. This week was MVC and application controller pattern. So next week is Ben with Hibernate and Gary with QC JSON and JSON.
Okay.
And I guess if Gary's here next week, we can give him the opportunity to present his application controller pattern stuff as well.
Well, either that he could do just an individual video and put it up for us too.
It's another option, yeah.
If he wants to do that. And I don't think, has Ricardo come to a meeting yet?
I don't believe so.
He pops up on the discussion board once in a while.
He's slated to do system level tests during week 7. And use case documents in week 8. So he did sign up for presentations, but I do not know what his schedule is. There's been no communication on the Slack channel from him since he joined the channel and said that he did sign up for stuff. So anyone's guess. I'm not even sure what time zone he's in, honestly.
Well, I was kind of wondering that myself because I see posts like once a week or twice a week, but sometimes it's on Sunday, so maybe he's on the other side of the world somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go back and check the get to know you discussion board and see.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are you guys doing with the format of the class? Kind of getting into a groove with it?
A little. It's I mean, this is obviously a very self-paced, do-your-own-thing type of class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone turned in more than one familiarity report?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn one in when I actually have something to turn in. I think. I've got like a lot of like baseline framework for a bunch of different stuff, but I just need to like focus down and actually get like JUnit tests and Hibernate and servlets and get them done, as opposed to just like, oh, it's a thing. And
right. But he's not looking for a whole lot on stuff for basic. Just a little sample code and make sure you can kind of describe what it's doing.
That is a relief to me, because my collections file for my code is 174 lines.
Oh, that's a lot.
And I'm not even done with QMap and tree.
Yeah, so for the record, let me open that project up real quick. Oh,
I think I just need to set my personal expectations a little bit lower, because like I'm kind of one of those people, like a GPA like crackhead basically, or like it's A or I am a total failure. And that is sometimes a weakness.
No, I like A's myself. So when I threw out what we were doing, I had no idea. But my collections, that's not what I'm looking for. My collections total, let's see, is 110 lines, and that's a lot of gaps in between code. So total file is 110 lines, and he gave me basic on that.
Cool.
And then basically all I turned in was what I showed in a demonstration last week.
It's good to hear. I will simplify my entire life, and then maybe I'll actually have time to do other classes.
So it's a good thing you know how to expand it, because we'll have to do that for the application that we decide to build. But to get that basic piece, then get that, I guess, that checkbox taken care of, just keep it simple.
Cool. Yep, and is the thing the post week 10, you've gotten basic on everything, now build an application thing? Is that based on, is that our group doing that, or is that individual, or is it like half and half collaborative? Like
I thought that was individual.
Yeah, after week 10, you don't have to meet with your group anymore. You can if you want, and you can use them as a resource, but you're pretty much on your own after week 10 is what my understanding was.
Okay, okay.
That's my understanding too.
Like, you guys are cool, but that's cool with me. Like, I don't like group projects.
No, because usually if I do a group project, I tend to like just do the group project.
Yep.
I forget I actually have a group, and then I realize, oh, I do have a couple people that can help me. And
yeah, cool. Well, I need to go pick up my wife from a thing. She's doing a massage for people, so I need to go pick her up from that. But is there anything else before we adjourn?
I'm good.
Yep.
Nope.
I'm good.
Cool. I guess,
all right.
See you guys next
Talk
week.
to y'all next week.
Yeah,
all right,
talk
guys.
to you in the Slack channel.
Yep.
Questions, feel free to use it as a resource.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Have a good day.
All right, bye.